What's up, everybody? We are back here at the shop. I am back from work and we have some big news. So if you remember on the last video, we talked about that I sold off one of my race cars and I was going to use that money to help fund the new build for the S14 1UZ car. So if all of you didn't remember, I have an S14, it's got a 1UZ in it. And my original plan this summer was I was going to take, these two are both 1UZs. This is an early gen. That's a VVTi later gen. My plan was to combine these two motors to get me basically a VVTi thick rod 1UZ to use with that supercharger right there. Right there. With the goals to hit somewhere in the 350 to 400 wheel horsepower mark. Well, I started doing a lot of homework, a lot of research, and figured out that to get a 1UZ to 350 to 400 takes a lot more money than I anticipated. When I originally looked into it, it wasn't too difficult. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe COVID had something to do with the fact that everything kind of went out of stock and outlandishly priced. I don't know. I mean, I looked into it to just get a standalone harness to make this thing work with the standalone ECU. I mean, we were talking $1,500 to $1,700, and that didn't even include the ECU. Then I would need ARP head studs, head gaskets, you know, all that kind of stuff, which for whatever reason, for this motor right here, all of that stuff is way more expensive than the motor that I've decided to go ahead and go with. So I'm sure a lot of you can probably figure this out. Unfortunately, I'm jumping on a bandwagon, and I am joining the world when it comes to LS swapping the world. So as a lot of you may know, LS motors are just easy to swap, easy to make power with. And so I decided to use some of that money from the S13 chassis that I sold and whatever I can get by selling off these, which I've got someone coming today to pick up this one. That one's still for sale, and the swap out of my car is for sale. So if you know anybody, hit me up. I'll hook them up. Anyways, as everybody knows, LS motors are easy to swap. They're easy to make power with. Parts are dime a dozen because everything's interchangeable. Well, I had originally found this motor right here, this 6.0, which was the original plan. I was going to go ahead and do a 6.0 LQ or LQ9, one of those, whichever you would, you know, whichever I could find for a good enough deal. But I originally found this 6.0 and from a guy that was a pretty good deal. And we got to talk and come to find out that he had that motor right there too. I'll go a little deeper into that motor in just a second. That's kind of a surprise. So anyways, when I got to talking with the guy, we had worked out a deal that I was thinking, all right, I'll pick up that motor, I'll turn around, I'll sell that motor, and I'll use that money to build that motor. Well, originally the plan was that that motor up back there was a good running motor out of a 137,000 mile Chevy 3500. I brought along my borescope to make sure I checked it out because, as you all know, unfortunately nowadays, you really can't trust people. So I went ahead and pulled the plug on it. Come to find out there's rust in the cylinder wall of that one right there, okay? So the way I looked at it, and this is kind of the way I told the guys, like, look, man, I was like, this is not a running motor. This is a motor that's going to need a rebuild. And I told him, I was like, I'm still interested in it, just not at the price that we had originally agreed upon. So then when he started talking about this motor right here, this was a full rebuild motor, basically just a core motor. He said that he could never get the thing to run right. I know why. It's got two different heads on it. Duh, right? Anyways, that motor he was going to throw it into the package deal. And I kind of got talking with him. I was like, look, man, I was like, to rebuild these motors, you're talking at least $2,000. That's if everything's good on the inside and I don't have to replace things like pistons or rods or crank or nothing like that. That's just doing bearings, rings, honing, boring, whatever it takes to, you know, get the motor back up and running. But, you know, he agreed with me. So I was like, look, I'm interested in them, but we're going to have to work out a deal, you know. I borescoped this one out. This one looked pretty good. I started looking up serial numbers on this. I was under the impression when I went to go get these two motors, that one and this one. This one was out of Yukon Denali. It was a 109,000 mile motor. I was under the impression that all these motors, both these motors, were iron block motors. Little did I know that motor, I'll tell you about it in just a second, they only come aluminum. And I don't think he knew that motor was aluminum. Because the amount of money that I paid for all three of these motors that motor alone is worth more. But anyways, I looked at that motor, cylinder walls look good. I was like, all right, cool. I could sell that motor. Didn't even realize what I was getting at the time. I could sell that motor and easily fund the build on that motor. Started doing some research, started looking into everything, and come to find out that this motor is even better than we originally thought. So this, drum roll please, is basically an LS3. It is a 6.2 liter aluminum block V8 out of a, like I said, a Denali, but this is the high output model. It's got the 823 heads, which is basically the LS3 heads. The LS3 heads, only difference between them is that they intake valve, or they have a hollow intake valve versus this one has a solid intake valve, and obviously the intake manifold. As well as the LS3 motors don't have VVTi. This is VVTi, gives a little bit more low end torque. But the high output motor, bone stock form, puts out right in the range of like 430 horsepower, 440 foot-pounds of torque to the flywheel. So of course, here I am now. I'm like, what do I do? I started researching this motor. This motor just makes easy horsepower. I was like, you know, I didn't really want that much power, but then finding out that I'm gonna have to rebuild those motors, I was like, all right, $2,000 to rebuild those motors. I could sell that motor, yeah, and I might get to right about 370 wheel horsepower, somewhere in that mark, which I mean is enough. But you know, if you can make easy power, you know, and I get over my power, stock horsepower is more reliable than built horsepower, right? We all know that. So I started doing some more homework on this motor. This motor alone, with just a cam, nothing else, a cam and a tune, you can get almost 600 flywheel horsepower. That got me thinking real hard, because that's such easy power. And with that kind of power, I can detune the thing and get the thing to my power goals, more than my power goals, more reliably than I can with those motors, right? So I kind of started thinking, I'm like, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I beat my head, you know, into the wall probably for a week solid, you know, because I could sell that motor and recoup my money for those. But that's aluminum block, better for drifting, builds less heat, you know, it's lighter, better balance, it'll make it a better drift car all around. So after, you know, talking with a bunch of people and doing a bunch of research, I have decided we are doing 6.2 in the S14. So there's your big news. We got a 6.2 on the way. I'm getting ready to get all the stuff unloaded so I can get this off the engine stands, put those on the engine stands, you know, get those things out of my truck. They've been in my truck now for about a week. But here we are. This is what's coming to fruition. I have a ton of parts on the way for this thing. I've already started ordering all the stuff for it. The only thing I've pretty much got left that I can remember is I've got to decide what cam I want to use for it, because I don't really want to go too crazy. But on the same token, if I've got to change the cam anyways and I can make it nice and reliable with big power, why not do it, right? Why not? More power. Or as they say, more power, baby. Anyways, I probably shouldn't say that because I'll probably get copyright laws. Anyways, stay tuned. Hit that like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification button so that you get to catch all of the videos that I make as I swap this into my S14. As I've been able to find, there's not a ton of S14 swapped with the L92, the 6.2. So we're going to be learning as we go, but from my understanding, it's basically the same as the typical LS swap. We're just going to get more power, man. So I'm excited. You should be excited. Make sure you check out the video. We're going to watch this, or make sure you watch this. We got a lot of stuff coming, so I'm excited, y'all. Peace out.